this Anderson Silva situation is a little bit complicated. I mean, it's a little bit complicated because it turns philosophical very fast. It doesn't really turn into what is your record and what have you done. It gets to be a little bit deeper meaning. So Anderson had X amount of fights left on his contract with the UFC. I think it was 2, but he had X amount, and this came out publicly. And Dana came out and said, this is his last fight. He and I have made a deal. This is going to be his last fight. Win or lose, but we have a deal. So, and Anderson agreed. Anderson honored that, and he said after the fight, as you guys saw, let me think about this. I realize it's my last fight here. I don't dispute that. But I'm not ready to say right now in this emotional moment as I leave the UFC that I'm leaving the sport. And it was pretty thought out because most guys are a little bit high on excitement. They're high on adrenaline. And whether it's some crazy call out or it's I'm done and I'm never coming back, it's still based around emotion and they're not totally thinking clear. And Anderson's seen that happen a million times. Was able to compose himself and speak clearly, which was to say, I can't give you an answer. Can't tell you yes or no. I have no answer for you. In fact, I'm going to go home. Speak with my family and speak with my coaches and think about this myself. Well, he's had a little bit of time. He did all of that. And he came out today and he was talking about, look, I have a deal with the UFC. Deal's a deal. I am done over there. But I am not into this idea of a forced retirement, quote. So he then was breaking down and assessing himself publicly. And he said, I have not lost the will. I have not lost my ability to be the best. I have not lost my desire to compete. Oh, and by the way, even if I lost that match with Uriah Hall, that was based on a technical mistake, not on a physical attribute of me being slow. Now I'm starting to paraphrase. He said physical attribute, but I happen to agree with him. His conditioning was on point. Your conditioning can only be on point. You go into the 4th round of a pretty high-paced fight if you're in the gym and training. If you're in the gym and training and keeping up and your cardio is there, you're making weight, you're doing some of these things that signify hard work and dedication, those aren't signs of being old. Those are signs of the opposite thing. I could tell you, personally, I stick myself in here, but as I started to come to the end, I wasn't able to finish the workouts. Coach Clayton never said anything to me, but I could read it in his eyes. I could not now do the same duration in the workout. That's just a sign of getting older, right? Okay, then I got to go and do something else. I bring that to you because Anderson does have some clues pointed in the opposite direction. When he talks about it was a technical mistake, one thing that we have seen with athletes, and I have seen in the fight with Anderson, is that the chin does go for whatever reason. You just can't take the same shot that you used to be able to take. So when you're seeing that from the outside and you're looking in, what do you do? Do we point to the guy's age, which can tend to hurt feelings, or do we throw that number out and look at other numbers such as wins and losses in X amount of time and say, well, nobody else with this win-loss ratio gets to stay under contract with this organization? Do we do that? That way we haven't hurt feelings. But we're also not being as candid as saying there's a responsibility here. We feel that we have it in making the fight, and you were at an age that historically is not very promising. See where it gets a little bit complicated? And then you've also seen guys, and when I talk about the philosophical side, we will tell people from the day they are born, the day they are old enough to understand language, to not let anyone else control their destiny, to pursue your dreams and to never give up. We will tell them that. And then at some point, there's this tipping point where we step in and tell them, forget your dreams and forget your goals. Hard work will not get you there, right? Your whole life, you're told, if you're willing to work hard enough at something, anything can be achieved. And then we come in and say, no matter how hard you're willing to work, this can't be achieved. That's where it becomes philosophical, but it doesn't make us wrong. There is a tipping point. There is a time where it's out. Time's up. Every sport, everything in life, life itself, time's up at some point. No more. I look at Evander Holyfield, and Evander was singing this same tune for a period of time. And it was never Evander that walked away. Finally, you had to get the leaders in the room, the promoters themselves, the trainers, the potential opponent, everybody. No, stop. It's enough. He's done enough. He's got enough great memories. He chased the dream and he won. But now it is time to go and do something else, and this comes from a health perspective. As much as a competitive architecture and as much as we're doing a business, as much as people like this guy, it is now he's got to go do something else. And that's basically how Evander's career ended. I respected everybody involved there, including Evander. I respected the hell that Evander squeezed that as hard as he could, was willing to work, was willing to train, was willing to walk out there and do it. And I respected the people that had authority over him by stepping in and saying, we're not booking any more matches. I didn't think there was any villain in that story. But that is the story, and I bring that to you because this isn't the first time that this has happened, where somebody has wanted to continue doing something, but been told to stop and didn't agree with it. I concede Anderson looked really good. He was winning moments. He was winning rounds. Who the heck can say that at 44 years old with an up-and-comer against Uriah Hall? He was frustrating Uriah. Uriah paid him that respect after it. Uriah was criticized falsely for not being active enough in the fight. Uriah said, man, I didn't see any openings. Anderson did a great job of moving and of controlling range. Those are compliments. There's nothing wrong with Uriah saying that. It took him some time. He figured out the puzzle. He did what he had to do. I just didn't see, okay, this is done. And you will see that. We'll all see it long before the fighter will see it. We saw it with Matt Hughes, by example, who stayed in there a long time. Fought the hardest fights, and then even when they weren't championship fights, was still fighting the next generation. He was fighting the Josh Koscheck's of the world. So they're just going to be hard matches. Once you've slowed down and Josh is red hot, those are just going to be bad matchups. And I parlay this conversation into what we're seeing with Shogun right now. It's very tough. It's also very clear. Very clear from the outside. And Shogun doesn't feel it inside. He doesn't feel that he's quitting or letting go. But he's not gonna. 20 years from now, Shogun's still gonna think, bring on this next generation. They're not as tough as my generation. Even if I've slowed down, I can beat these kids. There's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, an adult steps into the room and says, we're done here. It's one of those things. And I don't know that Shogun's there. Shogun in his last 5 there was like a draw in there and 2 wins and 2 losses. That's not a terrible record. That's not a terrible record. There was also damage done within those fights, even the ones that he won. That's what we're looking to. I bring that to you because I don't want you guys to view Dana having to step in or Coker having to step in or leadership in any governing having to step in and stop something. We're also looking at damage, regardless of outcome. Dana was very clear on this prior to Anderson's last fight. Anderson could have won that fight. He's done. He could have knocked out Uriah. Anderson's done. He could have decisioned Uriah. Anderson is done. He could have TKO'd Uriah. He's done. He could have won by disqualification. And he could have lost any of those ways as well. He's done. This is it. So everything has been very consistent, but it comes back to a damage standpoint as well. And I think as you start to look at Shogun, you would have to agree he is taking more damage as of late, win or loss. Doing good. Tough son of a bitch. He's taking more damage than you would like to see an athlete taking. And it's not as cold as you might think. The cold stories are for the guy that never did reach his goal. The guy that never had that moment in the sun or got some of those big paychecks. In all fairness, they're doing this to try to set their lives up for the future. Anderson, these guys did great. They did great. And it turns out they're true competitors that have something within them. That's also something that we will celebrate and respect them for tremendously. Everything here has been very consistent. Everything here has been very above board. I don't know what's going to happen with Shogun. I have a pretty good guess on what's going to happen with Anderson. Anderson has made it very clear that he wants to continue on. And I think that he can. I just think we're going to need to find something within the rules that don't require you to take damage. I mean, the unified rules are pretty damn specific. This is going to be a sport that is going to be judged and based around who did more damage to the other. It's pretty tough rules. But there's other games that you can play, and I only bring that to you because I do have a little bit of a fear. I'm seeing something in other countries right now. We have bare knuckle boxing here in America, but I'm also seeing it happen in other countries where they just bring anybody in, and there's no commissions and sanctionings, and they give a damn. I don't know that I want to see some of our heroes go into that. I could bring Vanderlei into the equation too. Vanderlei, who is not competing in mixed martial arts anymore, by rumor is going to go and compete in bare knuckle. I'll go watch it. I'm just sharing, if you're looking for another sport to do and you're going to alter your skills to the confines of that sport, it wouldn't be unreasonable for you to pick a sport that is not based around damage.